This is Lady Luna. The masculinity crisis in Australia is growing up to massive proportions. Young men and boys, more than half, have the desperate need to act tough and be a manly person, to be confident and strong at all times. However, teaching these kids at a young age to adopt rigid masculine gender stereotypes, a lot of these boys are struggling to deal and regulate their emotions in a healthy way. They might come from strict cultural backgrounds, where their fathers, uncles, grandfathers, or male caretakers express rigid male traits in their early childhood by their parents, so they expect their sons or male children they raise to be the ideal example of a manly man. However, this is heartbreaking to watch. I see these boys in public streets. A lot of these boys seem to struggle, taking on a tough, manly persona while being still so young. They try to fit in by acting tough, and they use heavily use of swearing to show they are men, and go after vulnerable targets or people who they think are a threat to their masculine identity. I think masculinity should be empowering in a positive, healthy way. As a woman, I go out in public. I shouldn't feel cautious or uncomfortable with young boys and men engaging in forcible, dominant behaviors. I don't deserve to be sweared at as a stranger, just a person living her own life. By adopting rigid male dispositions, the boys are taught that crying and showing emotions is a weakness. Therefore, a lot of boys and young men find themselves in friendships that strive on constant peer pressure, acting strong and tough, while they're feeling lost and insecure without any emotional support. As a public member, I witnessed this and it was difficult to bear. I remember I went to a shopping centre in Chatswood. A young high school boy started swearing at me and his friend looking uncomfortable and agreed in a soft, silent voice. He didn't want to be considered weak or end up a black sheep, an outcast in his peer group. I knew these boys were hurt and were struggling with their male identity, or they weren't receiving emotional support in their lives. No one deserves to be treated unfairly or due to someone's personal struggles in life. It was difficult for me as a woman who was a stranger being projected with toxic, negative energy when I can't be in a personal position to help or support these boys. The use of inappropriate language was hard to empathize with these boys, as I didn't like to be treated like that, regardless of the reason. We need to let the boys know that they aren't alone in life. Showing emotions isn't a weakness, but a vital part of being a human being. We need to educate them that other people aren't their enemy. Practicing empathy and kindness, communicating calmly. Boys and young men need to connect with their emotions in a healthy way to foster genuine friendships built on understanding and trust, rather artificial ways of acting cool or showing off to their peers. The Australian government in 2026 are addressing this concern by banning and removing toxic masculine content from social media, such as Andrew Tate. Children under 16 years old don't have access in social media. Programs to promote male support programs in many schools are continuing to educate young boys and men, encouraging their masculinity in a positive manner. Programs such as The Man Cave and Tomorrow's Man are challenging manosphere influences online, educating emotional regulation and expression, as well as relationship promotion on positive traits such as respect and reducing gender violence. I hope these programs will support these boys to build their lives back and encourage emotional maturity. Another increasing concern in Australia is that many teenage boys are joining gangs. These boys mostly come from families that might have little or lacking emotional support or a healthy, secure upbringing. Crime groups target vulnerable, inexperienced children into their ranks who feel alone, sad, angry, and upset at the world, who doesn't appreciate them. Through social media and digital platforms, they lure these boys, giving them a false sense of belonging by asking the kids to commit crimes for money. Some of these kids support their families for the sake of money, while others are heavily pressured to act masculine and see it as an opportunity to show their masculinity. Some of these boys aren't blessed in supportive families and grew up in abusive households where violence and trauma is a frequent or daily occurrence. These kids go to these gangs to deal with the emotional wounds. It is very distressing that these young boys believe that committing crimes, they will be free from misery. We need to promote a society to ensure people who are struggling understand there is hope and help in their lives. We understand that life is hard. Overcoming adversity is always challenging. We need to look deep into ourselves in order not to be swallowed by our own wounds, projecting onto other people or swearing at strangers is not going to lead them to happiness, only more pain and suffering. Therefore, addressing mental health is important more than ever. Young boys and men shouldn't be ashamed of seeking help from a mental health doctor. They should be fine to express vulnerability and heal from the emotional trauma. They deserve a life free from rigid male gender stereotypes into a good life, supported by healthy relations with others. Considering masculinity, I hope these boys find a positive environment to express their struggles and having positive role models to learn from. Thank you for listening to my channel. Please subscribe. This podcast will be available on Spotify and YouTube. I hope to see you soon. Lovely viewers. Thank you.